Okay. Well, good. Okay, it's Lacha. That's a very nice idea. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
Ron.
Okay,
My Rabbi first.
How are you today?
Baruch
Yes.
Hashem.
Rabbi
What
Furst,
happened?
Parsha Hashavua.
Oh, yeah, what happened yesterday? I was trying to get in and I couldn't raise
Yeah,
anybody.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I saw your email. I don't know what happened. I've been having the last few days, they say they've been doing road work in my neighborhood. So they've been
Uh,
up the streets. And what happened, I think on 3 or 4 days ago, the tractor broke into the telephone lines. So
uh,
everything there was no telephones, internet, Wi-Fi, everything was down. So I had to
uh-huh.
head home, and I had to, and then on top of that, the Zoom company, they did an upgrade. They're doing these incessant upgrades.
Yes, yes, I get messages. Don't turn off anything. We're upgrading or something.
Right.
Yeah,
See, the computers want to control our lives. It's us against the computers, right, Lou?
yeah, but they're
All in
doing that.
Hashem's hands, Rabbi.
Excuse me?
It's all in Hashem's hands.
That's right. We have
Messages.
Hashem on our side. They don't. That's for sure. So
Right.
yeah, we take it with a smile, Baruch Hashem. But like I always say, it's much better than smoke signals,
That's easier. Yeah, that's true.
especially
Yeah.
on a rainy day.
Mm.
So Baruch Hashem, we have what we have. I'm sorry you couldn't come in and join us yesterday, but the technical problem, I don't know exactly what it was.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
anyway, here we are now. That's what counts, I guess. And,
Right.
we'll pick up with the double parsha this week, Matos and Maasei, right?
Yeah. That
So
finishes off the numbers. Midbar.
Yeah, with this is the signal that we're getting closer and closer to the end of the year.
Yeah, it's a bit frightening or
You
worrying.
took the words out of my mouth. You really took the words out of my head. It's really frightening when you think about it. It's frightening. It is
Mm.
frightening. Um, so let's begin. I think let's take a look here in Parshas Maasei. Okay. Um, the first, let's look at the beginning of the Parshas Maasei. It's a Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Aleph, and we're going to see the Rashi. Rashi's very, as always, Rashi's very enlightening and insightful here. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Fine. If somebody would like to read the first pasuk, and we'll go straight to the Rashi after that.
So where's my? There we are.
Maasei.
Where's I've got Matos. Then I've got Maasei. Where's Maasei begin?
Maasei, in the beginning of it's actually
Oh,
Lamed Gimel pasuk.
I've got it here, I think.
Aleph, right there, pasuk Aleph.
Yeah, I've got the. It is hardly any distance between and hardly any gap. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Eila Maasei B'nei Yisrael Asher Yatzu Me'eretz Mitzrayim L'tziv Osam B'yad Moshe V'Aaron. Okay, so these are the journeys. This week's Parsha is named Journeys of the children of Israel, that they went forth from the land of Egypt according to their legions, through the auspices of Moshe and Aaron.
Right. Very good.
All right.
So, first point to mention is, the when you in the general way that people refer to the experience that Kal Yisrael had in the Midbar, they were wandering. We were wandering for 40 years in the wilderness, right? So it wasn't wandering at all. right? It was purposeful and with direction, right?
Mm.
Not only does the pasuk here said it was um through the as you said the auspices of Moshe Rabbeinu, but it was also at the direction of the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself through the Inani Kavod and Amida Eish. They would lift and they would call, as we learned earlier in previous parshas, that would be the way that Klal Yisrael would be signaled to break camp or to set camp. This is all according to the direction of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. By no means you get this idea when you use the phrase wandering in the wilderness. It was kind of haphazard without any particular rhyme or reason. But no, it's actually with extreme divine perception and divine hashkafa, divine guidance that we were going to each and every place, and how we've only stayed at every place, when we camped at every place, and it was all done with intention. It wasn't wandering at all, right?
Mhm.
So, and that was, and it's referred to as yad, right? The yad,
Mm.
most of our yeah.
I never thought of it.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, when we refer to the wandering, and it's not wandering. It was really
Mm.
it's intentional. We were going there, and if you look into the Svarim, there was why we stayed at every place, and how long we stayed at every place. There were things that were being accomplished and done, and Hashem wanted us to go to these various different places.
Mm.
It's significant to mention. I mean, there's a Gemara in Brachos. I mean, again, we were in the Midbar. There's no doubt about it. We were in the Midbar, and the Midbar is a place where there's no civilization, there's no settlements, and the Gemara in Brachos mentions that every place in the world where there's settlements, Adam Rishon went, and where there are no settlements, where people don't live, Adam Rishon didn't go. Meaning, for some reason, in some way, I'm not sure I would even call it the wanderings of Adam Rishon, but the traversions, the journeys of Adam Rishon, they set into place where there would be settlements in the world. Now, you might mention to me now, well, people have settled more or less everywhere in the world, right? But I think that's under, maybe you could say, under normal circumstances. And first of all, we happen to have a team of scientists at a meteorological station at the South Pole. I'm not sure if that's considered to be a settlement. It's at best like it's temporary and it's under artificial conditions, right? Putting a man on the moon and keeping him there, even if you keep him there for years and years, but it's still under very artificial conditions. Right? So, right. So, Baruch Hashem, I mean, that's just a testimony to the ingenuity and the capability and the potentials of human intelligence, that we can do so many different things. People can, even if they want, foolishly go to take a look at the Titanic, and because they made the technology that you're able to do it. Doesn't mean you should do it. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. There's a whole different approach to things you can do and things that you should do. Many things you can do, but not everything you can do should you do. So just, even though we may be very curious to see what's down there with the Titanic, but doesn't mean you should go ahead and do it. You can be curious, but it doesn't mean you have to satisfy your curiosity. You know what they say about cats and curiosity, right?
Curiosity
Kills
kills
a
a cat.
Yeah, that's right. That's and if we're smarter than cats, we should take a lesson from the cats.
And since
So
cats
we should.
have 9 lives, that means the curiosity killed it 9 times.
Yeah, you see, it didn't learn. They didn't learn the first time.
As long as we don't kill curiosity.
No, that we should have. We should always be curious, right? Rabbi Miller, the Quran says, the human capacity for curiosity is because we have it innately within the human soul, right? We have the desire to reach our mission, to understand our mission, our purpose in life. Every person has been created with a certain purpose in life, certain mission, and we have innately that desire. So in order to fulfill that desire, we have been given that characteristic, that trait of curiosity. Fine. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the Rashi here at the beginning in Pasuk Aleph.
Okay. These are the journeys. Why were these journeys written? To make known the acts of kindness of the omnipresent.
If I can just interrupt here, this is just a minor change of words. Here I've got, why are these stations recorded here? These stations.
Okay,
So that's that's close to what you were talking about just a moment ago.
yeah, well, actually, the Maasei is actually, Maaseis are like the travelings, right? Stations would seem to be the machanas, the encampments, no?
I think the word stations here means, well, stations comes from the word stationary.
Good, correct,
right,
right,
so,
very good.
So these stations are where there was a halt for a while,
Right,
and probably infers some sort of settling.
right.
You can have a cup of coffee there or something.
At least. It's not a Danish as well.
Oh. Okay.
So, but
anyway,
what you know, but what you're pointing out is the question is, meaning what was the primary point of these psukim? Is it trying to tell us where they encamped, meaning the stations, where they became stationary, the encampments, or was it really telling us the journeys, right?
So I should read further.
Okay, well, let's take a look. Let's continue on with Rashi. Very good. Go ahead.
For although he decreed upon Israel to move them about and to make them wander in the wilderness. Wander.
Well, okay. So if you look at the right, the word in Lashon HaKodesh, the taltalam is to move them about. The taltal, like you can't be the halacha by muksa on Shabbos. You can't metaltel muksa, right? You can't move muksa, right? That's the same shorish of the word the taltalam, to move them about. Right? Now, what is that word like? If I'm not mistaken, that is a similar word that we use by lulav. Like we use when we take the lulav during Hallel, it's called the minuim, right? Meaning the movements, we call, I think we call it in English, they call it the wave, right? Wave the lulav, right? The wavings of the lulav,
right?
Yeah.
So then the minuim is the wavings of the lulav, right? But also when we take the lulav, we're not doing it randomly, right? A person when he takes a lulav, the question is when you in halacha, maybe we'll get to it when we get closer to Sukkos. Halacha, when you take the lulav, when does a child become chayiv in the midst of lulav? When he knows to do the minuim. If I'm not mistaken, that's the halacha, that he knows to wave the lulav. And again, it's not simply random. If you give a child who's 2-3 years old a lulav, he's going to pick it up, throw it down, bang it on the floor, whatever comes to mind, he'll do it. But when the child really gets a little older, 5 or 6 perhaps, and you tell him, no, you have to do it first to this direction, then you have to do it to this direction, then another direction, the fourth direction, then again, you have to do it up, you have to do it down, and 3 times there, 3 times there. So it's done in a very specific sequence and an order, right? So I would say, I guess, if they translate these, see when they leave these wanderings, see this type of language creeps in And I think it gives people the wrong impression of what's really going on there.
Mm.
Who was using that's an art school translation, Lou?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, I would write to them and complain.
We know how well that works, Rabbi.
Well, maybe give them another chance. Maybe give them another chance. In any event,
Now,
but
if we look at Yud Dalid,
Pasuk Yudalid,
no, look at chapter Yud Dalid
in where in the Midbar?
in Bamidbar, Lamed
Yeah.
Gimel, Pasuk Lamed Gimel.
Okay, well, Yudalid, Lamed Gimel, let's say Lamed Gimel. Okay, Yudalid, Lamed Gimel.
That's 20. Oh, just a minute. You mean we're in Lamed Gimel now? Is that what you mean? Is that Lamed Gimel?
No, Yud Dalid, chapter.
Chapter Yudalid, chapter 14.
All right.
According to my footnote, which is where I got this from, it's the same logic, but it's different words. It says Uvenei chem yiu ro'im b'midbar. And the English says, your children will roam in the wilderness.
Okay, that's a little bit better. I mean, that's sort of like a parva type of a nondescript. Because royim, when you literally a roy, it's the same source as a roya. A roya is a shepherd, right? A shepherd. Royim. So that's actually very good. That I think is a support for what I'm trying to say. Just like a flock, if it's under supervision of a shepherd, it just doesn't wander around. The shepherd is very careful to take it to where it should go.
Right. They roam around because they have a purpose. They're finding food.
Exactly. Right. Very good. So that yeah, they roaming is a good word. Let's see, is any Rashi on that?
Let's see. Pasuk 33. Yeah. Let's see. It's 40 years. I don't think there's a Rashi on the idea of roaming.
Yeah, not on that. But actually, I like that. That sort of gives me a little bit support for what I was saying. I mean, just like as I said, the shepherd is intentionally leading. If he's a good shepherd, right? He's a bad shepherd, he could care less, right?
Right.
But if he's a good shepherd, he knows where he lets them pasture here, and then he takes them the next day to another place where the grass has been growing, and where they have feed. Otherwise, they'll not only that, if they don't, listen. The Avos, Avraham Avinu was a shepherd, Yitzchak Avinu was a shepherd, Yaakov Avinu was a shepherd, David HaMelech was a shepherd, right? It takes a lot of if you're doing it right. Again, like if you're going to do anything, if you do it right, you need to put time and effort to understand what you're doing. But it's not simply just going out and letting the animals have a free day of it. So yeah, so I that's very good. That's good. So I would yeah. Let's see, you could even mention that to art school if you have to write to them again. Yeah.
I saw a shepherd once. We were on a hike.
Yeah.
Not too far from Jerusalem, and it was a mountainous area, and I heard this noise, and I looked over and I saw there was a flock of sheep, not so big, maybe 50 sheep, something like that, and there was a man riding a donkey, and he was riding behind the sheep, behind meaning the direction they're going. They were going away from him, but he was keeping up with them, and he was shouting, and he was riding his donkey in such a way as he was like kind of ringing them in and forcing them to move the way he wanted them to move. It was very interesting.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like anything. It's a profession. If a person's going to do it properly, you want the sheep to get nice and big and fat. So when it comes time to to shecht them, you have a nice fatty meat. And if you don't feed them properly, they're not going to be. First, they won't be healthy. Won't be fat enough to enjoy, right? And also, I mean, it's a whole process. I mean, the sheep are also important in fertilizing the ground where they pasture. That's also part of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's wisdom, that they're not simply just eating and moving on. No, when they're eating there, they're staying there and they're doing their business, and that also helps to fertilize the field, which is necessary for the healthy growth of the grasses or whatever else is growing in the fields. Correct?
Mm.
Right.
Right.
All part of the plan.
Yeah, right. So again, if we're simply talking about some sheep being pastured by a common shepherd, so much more so, Abdul, talking about a Kadosh Baruch Hu shepherding his flock of Klal Yisrael through the midbar. Right? So it was done very specifically. Okay, very good. Let's continue on with that Rashi at the beginning of the Parsha, again in the Pasuk Aleph in chapter Lamed Gimel 33.
You should not say that they were wandering and moving about. Oh, okay. From journey to journey, the entire 40 years, and they had no rest.
Oh, so that's what you shouldn't say. Don't think that they were constantly on the move. Don't think they were constantly. And this is why this is one of the reasons why we're being taught this, right? It's Hashem's chesed that Hashem was doing with us, and also don't think that we're on the move constantly for all those 40 years. No, that's not true. We'll take a look. Rashi's going to go through the accounting of all the 40 years now.
For here you have only 42 journeys.
Meaning, if you'll pay attention to the psukim that they're recorded here, you'll find out, you'll add up, and there'll be 42 journeys from the beginning to where it ends up there.
Mm-hmm.
Deduct
so even right, so one says, so even on average, right? Even on average, if you just divided it to 42 into 40, so that's one journey a year. But that's, as Rashi's, and so that you might consider that to be difficult and to be constantly moving every year. But it's not even going to amount to that. Rashi's going to tell you, he's going to walk you through the whole scenario right now.
Deduct from them 14, for all of those 14 were in the first year.
Yeah, I've got here, they're stopping places.
Right, exactly. Of these that are listed here in this week's Parsha, the first 14 took place within the first year.
After they left Egypt.
That's right. So meaning, basically, until we came to Har Sinai. Remember, we left Egypt. That was on Tes Vav of Nisan, and in the Rosh Chodesh Sivan, we came to Har Sinai. So between those, and which is basically 7 weeks, right? 7 weeks. So apparently, according to what she's teaching us, in those 7 weeks, we traveled 14 times. Okay, let's see. Rashi's going to walk it through.
In a year.
Excuse me. In the first year. Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm a little bit surprised. I think Rashi could have said until Har Sinai, because once we came to Har Sinai, we were there for a solid year, right? At least.
Right.
Right. We were there by Sinai for at least a solid year. So it took 7 weeks from the Yetzias Mitzrayim to come to, actually 6 weeks, because we were there. We came to Rosh Chodesh Sivan. We came to Midbar Sinai, right? And there we encamped. and there were 7 days there until Matan Torah. So it's really 6 weeks. 6 weeks we traveled from Yetzias Mitzrayim till Midbar Sinai. So within those 6 weeks, we traveled 14 times. When we came to Midbar Sinai, so I believe we were there for a whole solid year, maybe even a bit longer. That 1 second, let's take a look. That was in Parshas. 1 second, that was Parsha. 1 second. 1 second. Right. If you want to take a look in Perek Yud, the 10th chapter in Bamidbar, Pasuk Yud Aleph, chapter 10, verse 11.
8, 11 of Misting. Skipped.
It was in the second year, in the second month, on the 12th, the 20th of the month, the cloud was lifted from upon the tabernacle of testimony. The children of Israel journeyed according to their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran.
Oh, so okay, so very good. So that was in the second year, in the second month, right? Second year, second month. So now take a look at Rashi. Rashi explains it specifically. Go ahead.
According to their journeys, according to the law, which is stated explicitly for the traveling of their divisions, who is first and who is last.
Actually, go to Pasuk Yud Aleph 11. Rashi and B'chodesh Hasheni.
I'm sorry, wrong passage.
No problem. Go on.
In the second year, in the second month, it is thus found that you say that they spent 12 months less 10 days in Horeb. For see now, on the first of the month of Sivan, the third month, they encamped there, and they did not travel until the 20th of Iyar, the second month of the following year.
Right. Rashi gives you the exact amount of time. So they were by Har Sinai, right, for a year less 10 days.
Right.
So a year less than 10 days. And that's when they moved. They moved a year less than 10 days, meaning 300 we're going according to the lunar month. Probably we're going according to the lunar month. How many days in the lunar year?
355.
355. So it should be 345 days. 345 days they were by Midbar Sinai. 345. And then they began their first journey after that, and they came from Midbar Sinai to Midbar Paran. Okay. So now let's go back to our Rashi where we're just learning, right? The Rashi says, right, Shari Ein Kanel Arbaim B'Shtayim Masos. There are only here in total 42 journeys.
Right.
Okay. Now, the same Yud Dalid, right? You should take from them 14 journeys. There were only the 14 in the first year.
Before the decree to wander in the wilderness,
Right.
from the time they journeyed from Ramses until they came to Ritma, for it was from there that the spies were sent. as it says, and afterwards the people journeyed from Hatzeros, etc. Send forth for yourself men, etc. And here it says, they journeyed from Hatzeroth and encamped in Ritma. You have thus learned that Ritma is in the wilderness of Paran. And in addition, deduct from there, i.e., from the total of 42, 8 journeys, which were after the death of Aaron, from Mount Hor unto the plains of Moab, in the 40th year. It is thus found that during the entire 38 years between the first year in the wilderness and the last, they did not journey but 20 journeys.
Right. Okay. Very good. So of the 38 years, the only 20 journeys. And as Rashi mentions, many times they stayed even perhaps years in one place. Right?
Right.
So we shouldn't get the misconception that they were constantly on the move, nor were we wandering.
Right.
Okay, very good, very good. I think that's important to have a good, clear understanding about. Now, if maybe I want to skip to something else here. Okay.
Mm.
Right. I think to take a look here. Yeah. Let's take a look here. In Perek Lamed Hey, 35. 35.
Thirty-one, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35.
34 by 35. Pasuk 10, 9. Pasuk 9.
Mhm.
That's the beginning of the Parsha there. We'll take a look there. We'll start a little bit there. We'll get a running start. Yeah, Lamed Hey, Pasuk 10. 35, verse number 9.
Right.
Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the Bnei Israel and say to them, when you cross the Jordan to the land of Canaan, you shall arrange cities for yourselves, cities of refuge. They shall be for you, and the killer shall flee there, one who takes a life unintentionally.
Okay, let's continue on.
The cities shall be for you a refuge from a redeemer, so that the killer will not die until he stands before the assembly for judgment. As to the cities that you shall designate, there shall be 6 cities of refuge for you. The 3 cities shall you designate on the other side of the Jordan, and 3 cities shall you designate in the land of Canaan. They shall be cities of refuge.
Okay, very good. Now, let's go back to a couple of the few Rashis here, and I guess Yud Gimel Yud Dalet.
Yud Gimel, cities of refuge, 6 cities of refuge. This tells us that although Moses set aside in his lifetime 3 cities of refuge on the other side of the Jordan, they did not provide refuge until the 3 cities that Joshua designated as cities of refuge in the land of Canaan had been selected.
Right. So this pasuk is important because it's going to be mentioned later on that again, as Rashi mentions, they all 6 cities have to be built and function simultaneously, right? Whatever Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted, he wanted them to function simultaneously. So even though the ones that are on the other side of the Yarden would be built, and we'll see that Moshe Rabbeinu, in fact, he did build them. I'm not going to chance to discuss that today, maybe another time later. But nevertheless, they did not function as Iri Miklat until the 3 in Eretz Canaan would be built, right? And we learn out, because our teachers that Moshe Rabbeinu, in spite of that fact, Moshe Rabbeinu went ahead and constructed the Iri Miklat and Yevi Yarden, even though they wouldn't be ineffective until, as I said, until the ones in Canaan were also built and instituted. Nevertheless, since it was a mitzvah, even though he couldn't finish the mitzvah, he wanted to do everything he could do, even if it was a mitzvah that wouldn't be able to be completed by him. So we see from that great love and respect that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to the mitzvahs. Okay. Let's look at the next Rashi.
So this is on 14. The 3 cities, etc. Although there were 9 tribes in the land of Canaan, and here on the other side of the Jordan, there were only 2.5. They're equal in terms of the number of cities of refuge. Because in Gilad, there are many killers. As it is written, Gilad is a city of doers of wickedness, made treacherous with blood. So Gilad is on the other side of the Jordan?
Yes, that's on the other side of the Jordan, correct. So the Gemara speaks about this. I think it's a Gemara in Matos. There are other Gemaras as well that you see a fantastic thing here, as Rashi points out at the very beginning. Even though there are 9.5 tribes in Eretz Canaan, there are only 3 are in Miklat for all 9.5 tribes, and in contrast, there were only 2.5 tribes in Eivah Yarden, meaning that was Ketzi Sheva Menashe, Bnei Gad, and Bnei Reuben. But they still had proportionally many more Iri Miklat in Eivah Yarden than in Eretz Canaan, Eretz Israel. That you see from this, and the Gemara points that out. You see this a great difference between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Israel. And there's a great difference between Eretz Israel and Eretz Canaan. And the Chutz La'aretz. That one second. And take a look, and one of the reasons we'll explain about that is take a look here now in in Perek Lamed Base. You have a 32 over there.
Lamed Ayin, Lamed Daled, Lamed Base, yes.
Lamed
32,
And
Base.
the beginning there in Aleph.
Lamed Base Aleph,
Yeah.
Lamed Base Aleph, yes.
We're back in Matos.
Yes.
Yeah.
The children of Reuven and the children of Gad had abundant livestock, very great. They saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilad, and behold, the place was a place for livestock.
Oh, that's Gilad. Remember Rashi said by Gilad said it's a place of roasting, of killers. Right?
Mhm.
Right.
So they saw this place of Gilad. It was also a place for Mikneh. It was a place for cattle, right? Cowboys.
Mhm.
I don't want to speak lashon hara about the Cowboys, but they're not the most. I don't have an impression that they're the most friendly people in the world.
But Streichets,
Excuse me, Roy.
they're Streichets.
Sheikhs, right? They're dealing with cattle, and cattle beef. We know what people want beef for, right? So that was a place, and because we have two aspects that are mentioned over here in these two places. One, it was a place for cattle, and one was a place for killers. And we'll take a look here. Moshe Rabbeinu was not so happy that the Bnei Reuven, Bnei Gad wanted to settle there and not commit there to Israel. So, but finally they made an agreement. But I want you to make a. I want to mention to you here that. One second. Take a look in again chapter Lamed Beis, Pasuk Pasuk Kaf Dalet, 32:24.
Build for yourself cities for your children and enclosures for your penning, and what has come from your mouth shall you do.
Okay, so I want you to be very didactic in the order of what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them to do. V'nu lechem orim v'tatchem. You should build for your cities for your children. Ugedros v'tzonechem, and pens for your flocks. Right. So what came first? Moshe Rabbeinu said to build for them the cities for their children, and then after that, build them the pens for their flocks. Okay.
Right.
Now, contrast that with, go back to Pasuk Tes Zion, Pasuk 16. This Pasuk is what they were suggesting to Moshe Rabbeinu. Bnei Reuven and Gad, they were suggesting to Moshe Rabbeinu the following. Right? Yishuei Lav, they came and were close to Moshe. B'yomu they said,
Big sheepfolds here for our cattle and cities for our little ones, the other way around.
exactly the opposite way around. They said what was their first priority? Their first priority was Gidros Tzon, right? The pens for their cattle, for their flocks. And they'll build with Kanenu, Polarim, Lutam. And then after that, secondly, they would build for their children the city. And Moshe Rabbeinu told them the exact opposite. No, you don't take care of your cattle first, you take care of your children first. They wanted to take care of their cattle first and then take care of their children.
And if you read further on, it's they are aware of the inhabitants of the land. They said, our little ones shall abide in fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. That's Pasuk 17. But nonetheless, they're still going to look after the sheep first.
Right. So you see the influence. You see, first of all, you see the inclination that they have, and you see the influence, and therefore they had the influence of that. That they were more concerned, apparently, because Moshe Rabbeinu was apparently correcting them, that they wanted to take care of their cattle first, their possessions first, and then take care of their families. Moshe Rabbeinu corrected, saying, no, you take care of your families first, and then you take care of your possessions. So if people are concerned more about their possessions than their family, so that's a very serious mistake in priorities, right? People should put people first and not possessions. And if people are going to put possessions first and give them priority over people, then what can happen? It becomes such a situation. And again, remember what we started with. Because of the 2.5 tribes in Avery Yarden, they're going to be Iri Miklat. Who are the Iri Miklat are made? Not there's a question in the Gemara where Iri Miklat are made for non-Jews. Primarily, Iri Miklat are made for Jews. Right? So those 3 Iri Miklat are being made for the Jews that are going to be living in Avery Yarden, meaning Shevet Gad and Ruvain and Chetzi Shevet Menashe. Those Jews are going to have murderers. They're going to be people who are going to be interested in blood, and they're going to have to go to the Iri Miklat.
They're influenced by the non-Jews.
It could be very well. It could be that and not only that, but their influence from the non-Jews was also brought about because of their motivation. Their motivation was for possessions, right? They wanted. The whole point was they wanted to come to settle in Oivi Yard. What, you don't want to come into Eretz Israel? Isn't that a place of ruchnish? Isn't it much better and proper to live in Eretz Israel rather than to find a nice place where you can be a cowboy with your cattle? Maybe they want to settle in Utah or Wyoming. You know, I'm sure there's very good places for cattle out there in Wyoming also. So why should they want to settle in Wyoming when you could live here in Yerushalayim? Right? It must be something motivating you. You want to settle in Wyoming rather than Yerushalayim. So if it's a motivation because of the value placed upon physical possessions, so if that's what's motivating you, so then it's going to be a very difficult challenge not to be influenced to the very extreme. And therefore, we unfortunately see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew this. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded that there be 3 Iri Miklat in Avery Yarden, even though there would be less than 3 Shvatim. And that's a direct result of what their motivation was, what their intention was. That's just a lesson in how careful you have to be in not being influenced by your motivations, trying to understand what your real true motivation is. This is what the Vilna Gaon writes. Rav Scheinberg Zechron Baruch would bring this as a lesson many times. The Vilna Gaon writes that a person is influenced. All his behavior is influenced based on his Ratzon HaRishon, his primary motivation, his deep, many times unconscious motivation. What is the thing that is really motivating the person? And that the Vilna Gaon says the person's not able to always understand that clearly.
No, I was just thinking, what is mine? I don't know.
Yeah, that's just it. We know many times people don't examine. They don't even examine what's motivating them, right? What's motivating a person, right? So I can Hey, go ahead. What do you want to say? Roy?
No,
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say maybe it's different things at different situations or
Yeah,
different
definitely.
times.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
What's motivating a person to get married? What's his
mm,
motivation to get to go into a certain career, right?
mm.
What's motivating to buy this type of product, to buy this kind of a suit, right?
To come to this shiur, to come to that shiur.
Yeah, exactly.
What's different?
What's
Yeah.
that the person has the person should think about this, because the whole behavior of a person is going to be revolving on what his real motivation is. And then again, as you just admitted, and as the Vilna Gaon says very truthfully, many times people don't realize what their true motivation is.
Mm.
Sometimes it's very secret. But I can tell you in general, you can probably guess it's one of the three big ones. People are usually motivated because of kina, taiva, v'kavod. Right?
Because what did you say?
Kina, which is jealousy,
Ah,
taiva, which is lust, and
uh-huh.
kavod, which is prestige. The,
Yeah.
the three main motivations that people have are prestige and lusts and jealousy. So if a person wants to analyze anything he's doing, even thinking, anything that he's even saying, he could start with these three big things, and he usually can find something without too much further ado, which relates to these three big motivations. And they're important motivations, but they have to be controlled with the guidance of the Torah. Right? Person has a desire. Is a desire for money, right? Desire for money, because why? Because money is going to give him prestige. So he has money. He's motivated by prestige, so he wants to get a lot of money. So nevertheless, as much money as a person wants to get, when it comes to Shabbos, right, he has to stop working on Shabbos, right? So the Torah is going to give him a day off from his trying to get money to help his prestige, and he's supposed to realign himself every week. He has a chance to realign himself. In any event, okay, that brings us to I think the end of our time. Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Lou. And I hope to see
Okay,
you both.
thanks.
See you next week.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you too.
Okay.
Well, all of you should be well, and a good Shabbos to both of you, and hope to see you next week.
Amen. You too. Be well. Have a nice Shabbos. Cool
you.
Shabbos.
Rabbi,
Yes.
Sunday, I have my eye surgery scheduled.
Okay.
So it's at
Should
6:40.
be your Pushalema Mitzvah Shem.
Amen. Amen. Aryeh Lev David ben Myrtle Kurev. I'm arriving at the hospital at 6:40. But I'm imagining I'll be there for at least 2 hours.
Okay.
So I won't be. I don't think I'll be coming to the shiur. Well, even if I'm home, I'm not going to be in a feeling like going to the shiur. I don't think.
I understand. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So go well with
Furst,
us.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Furst,
Shabbos.
Good job.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.